All right, hi, I'm Ricky. I am one half of the tender trainers. So at the tender trainers, we train subcontractors on how to tender effectively. So basically, our goal is to help make this process as simple and successful as possible so you can win those bigger contracts with less stress. I try and do these on a regular basis. So jump on, ask me a question, or feel free to DM me a topic you might like me to cover. All right, let's get into it. So this week, the topic that I've chose to talk about is around assumptions when you're tendering. So in every tender, or probably most tenders, the majority of them, you will probably have to make some assumptions to finalize your price and your bid. Now, this is going to be particularly true when the tender pack, like the scope, the information that you get is not great, right? When the information's not great, you can still do it, right? You can get on with the pricing, but you just have to make some assumptions to be able to get this done. Now, I want to make something very, very clear. You need to be thinking about assumptions in a certain way, and that is an assumption is a risk when you're tendering. So the risk of making assumptions at tender stage is your price going off on a tangent to delivery, meaning that what you've priced, it doesn't reflect what or how the job will end up being built. So an example of this is that you price installation in a certain way with certain equipment, and then when it comes time to build, you can't install it in this way and you need to change the plan a bit. So maybe you assumed you could use a larger piece of equipment that would mean that you'd get the job done quicker, but you can't actually fit that piece of equipment in, and for whatever reason, you have to change the way that you build it. You might have to hand dig it. You might have to hand dig it as a result from going from equipment to hand digging. That's an example. Ultimately, you can see here, right? There's going to be a difference between the way that you priced something and the end costs when this happens, when we price with assumptions. And someone is going to have to wear those costs. And who's going to wear them? So that ultimately depends on the contract. But in most cases, it's actually you, the subcontractor, that kind of have that risk and would have to wear that cost. So assumptions, how do we manage them then? What do we need to do to manage our assumptions? So firstly, you should always clarify with the client in the first instance and only make assumptions as last resort, right? So this means going to site and having a look at the site and, planning on how you'll get equipment in and whether you can get certain types of equipment in, asking questions if something's unclear of the client, asking for more drawings and more information. What we really want to be doing in this first instance is eliminating the assumption completely where we can. So if we can get rid of the assumption, the guess, and we know that, we can actually do that, the assumption goes away. That's what we need to do in the first instance. Secondly, for the items that you can't move out of this assumption column, you need to submit them as a list with your tender. So I'm sure you're already doing this, but with each tender, you include a clear set of your AQ&Es, your assumptions, your qualifications, and your exclusions. And these form the basis of your price, right? This list allows the client to see what's included and what's not. So for that example above, we might say as part of our AQ&Es that we have allowed to install to this methodology and showing them that this is the methodology that we've allowed to install to. Okay, thirdly, and this point is very important actually, we need to make sure that when you sign the contract, it reflects these assumptions in it. So, for example, if you've assumed that the client will provide you with access equipment, like a scaffold or even a piece of a boom or a scissor, then don't sign the contract if the contract says that you will provide the access equipment or the scaffold and you haven't allowed that in your price. So yeah, that point is really important. We want the contract talking to our price, and if we haven't allowed for it, we don't want the contractor saying that we will do it for obvious reasons. So basically, the goal here is to price with as minimal assumptions as possible, and hence reducing that risk of the assumption being wrong, right? And there being a difference of cost between our price and what actually happens. And you should be using the tender period to be getting things out of that assumption column and into the known scope and methodology column. So we use the tender period to get rid of as many assumptions as possible to reduce that risk. Okay, so yeah, in summary, we get rid of assumptions in the first instance, and if we can't, we make sure that we are contractually covered if things don't go according to plan. So don't let assumptions affect your bottom line. Let's get them covered properly with them being eliminated in the first instance. All right. Yeah, that's it for today. Nice, short and sweet. Yeah, keep an eye out. I try and do these regular, so I'll probably cover another impactful tendering topic soon, next week or the week after. Yeah, if you found this useful, check out our YouTube channel, The Tender Trainers. Got a bunch more content on there. And also we hold our monthly tender talk, which is our free training session. So if you're interested in joining us on that, send me a DM and I'll make sure you get the invite for the next one. All right, thanks and see you again soon.